Hey guys, it's Kier with another Fringe recap. Sorry I didn't do the season 2 episode from way before the winter hiatus because I was all sick and everything, so I was losing my voice and it would have sucked. Anyway, hope you guys saw the awesome unaired season 1 episode that they aired on Monday called Unearthed. It was pretty cool. So, this is season 2, episode 11. It's called Johari Window, which is, it's hard to explain what the name means, but you can find it on the Fringe wiki and stuff. So, there's this cop driving in this car, and then on the side of the road there's just this little kid walking by himself. So he pulls over and he's like, "Hey, what are you doing around here?" And he's like, "Oh, my name's Teddy, blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "You might want to hop in." So he gets into the car, and so the cop's driving, and then, suddenly he turns around to look at the kid, and he's all, deformed, his face is all, puffy, and it's freaky. So he takes him to the police station and stuff, and, he takes a picture of him, and they're all talking, and he's like, "Yeah, I think he's one of them," or whatever, and stuff. And then they keep talking, and then suddenly these two other deformed men who kind of look like the kid, well, I mean, face-wise, they just burst in and, shoot all the cops and stuff. And then, Teddy's all like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and then they take the kid and leave. So then Peter and Walter are at, some grocery store, and Walter doesn't want to come out, and then suddenly Peter gets a call from Olivia, and she's like, "Hey, are you ready to do a case in Edina?" or whatever. So they go to the police station, and they can't find any, shell casings or fingerprints, but they see the picture of the kid Teddy and stuff. So they look at other reports of people who look like this, and they're all from the same area, around Edina. So they go to Edina, and Walter thinks that they're kind of werewolves since the kid changed before the cop's eyes and everything. And then Olivia hears this buzz, so this really suspicious looking sheriff comes up, and he's like, "Oh, that's because of these generators, which are at a military base down the road." So, they go into this diner, and they're like, "Oh, do you know who this is?" And they show him the picture of Teddy, and he's like, "Whoa, I've never seen one of them before, I've only heard about them," and everything, which is totally suspicious, because, yeah. Well, anyway, there's this guy behind them who, makes eye contact with the sheriff, and then, gets up, and he's like, and then, walks out of the diner, and then he goes to his house, and there's, his wife, and there's Teddy there, sitting at the desk, and he's all worried, and he's like, "Though there was these people who came into the diner, and they were FBI officers, and they were talking about Teddy," and she's like, "Oh, what should we do?" and everything, and the Teddy's, listening to all that, and, sorry. So, Peter and Olivia are driving down the road in the car at night, and suddenly this car comes right at them, so Olivia has to turn, but they crash into all this shrubbery and bushes and everything, and then Walter's sleeping and Olivia's unconscious, and Peter's the only one awake, so he looks to the way where the car was, and then suddenly this other deformed guy hops out of the car and starts shooting at the car, so Peter ducks, and then Walter suddenly gets up and he's like, "Oh, Peter, are we there?" And he's like, "Get down, Walter!" So he gets out of the car, and the guy's shooting again, and he fires back, and then he thinks he killed him. So then the police come, and Peter, he's like, "Oh, I probably killed him," and they're like, "Oh, are you sure he was deformed?" He was like, "Yeah." So Olivia sees blood in these bushes, and sorry, my cat is being so noisy. Whatever. Anyway, so Peter thinks he killed him, and Olivia sees blood, so they go into the forest and they find the body, but it's the guy who was in the diner and the guy who went to his house, and Teddy's dad, Joseph, and he's lying there dead, but he looks like a regular human, he's not all deformed and stuff. And Peter feels really bad because he thinks he actually wasn't deformed and stuff. And Olivia tells him this story about how she first killed somebody, but Peter's face is all stone cold and whatnot and stuff. And Walter finds this rare butterfly, so he puts it in a jar and takes it. And then, so they're taking the body away, and Teddy's mom, Rose, is like staring out of the bushes and stuff, and she's all crying because her husband just died. So, they go to the lab and Walter is examining the body, and then Astrid sees the little jar and she's like, oh, it's sweet that you remembered I love butterflies, but I hate moths, which is weird because it was a butterfly when Walter found it, but it was a moth when she looked at it. Anyway, she goes and opens the body bag, and like his face is deformed again, which is weird, obviously. So, Walter thinks like that the butterfly moth thing is similar to the man, that it like has a two-stage life. So like the butterfly is sometimes a butterfly, but sometimes it's a moth, and the guy is sometimes just a regular guy, but sometimes he's deformed also. So, Olivia gets the name and address of the guy who just died, Joseph. So they go to Edina, and they find the sheriff, and he's like, oh, I don't know where exactly he lived and stuff. So, it goes back to the lab, and Walter thinks that the moth butterfly thing has some sort of genetic disorder, and, he says that the Joseph also has the same genetic disorder. So he's like experimenting, and then he remembers this Project Elephant thing, and he's like, oh, I might have worked on this, which he didn't say before, but like the moment they got to Edina, he's been like singing strange songs trying to remember stuff, which was pretty funny. But anyway, back to the story. So he thinks that he worked on this Project Elephant thing and experimented on these people, and maybe that's why they're deformed. So then they go to the Harkness library, and Peter and Olivia are trying to find something on this Joseph guy, Joseph Falls, but all the F-files are missing, and then Walter and Astrid are looking in this secret place thing, and they find this box of files from the U.S. Army, and they're all like these photos of the deformed men and all that. Then they look just like Joseph and the kid and everything. So Peter and Olivia are still looking for Joseph, but they can't find anything. And then Peter's like, oh, the census numbers look strange. So the sheriff calls, and Olivia finally finds the address of the Falls family. So then when he hangs up, the sheriff like walks outside of his office, and everyone from Edina is like outside, and he's like, these people don't know anything, we're gonna show them, we're gonna kill them, and all that. And it's really creepy. I was like, yes, I knew it, the sheriff was a bad guy. So, like, Walter is driving with Astrid, and he's telling her about all the experimenting and stuff with the soldiers, and they wanted to camouflage the soldiers in the mid-70s, I think. So they started like experimenting with electromagnetic pulses, and they made this electromagnet that sent out a pulse that like made these people like made regular people like see these people as something else rather than like what they really are. So but the exposure to this pulse like results in long time deformity, and like Peter calls, and he says like to just go home, but Walter's like, oh, we should look for the electromagnet instead, and he doesn't tell Astrid that Peter called. Anyway, they drive up to the sign that says Edina and everything, and before they enter, like Walter's like, oh, pull over here. So he walks out with the little butterfly moth jar and stuff, and he's like, Astrid, what do you see? And she's like, the moth? Then he's like, come closer, and she sees the butterfly. So the butterfly is not really changing, it's just the perception of the butterfly and the moth. So I'm going to go to part 2 now. See ya!